This elephant is her world, and you don't belong in it.
The photograph arrived at 3:27 a.m. through the satellite link, pixels loading line by line across Mason Kettler's phone screen. No message, no explanation. Just his 9-year-old daughter's stuffed elephant sitting in the back seat of a car he'd never seen before. Mason's hands trembled as he gripped the phone, the offshore platform's deck lights casting harsh shadows across his weathered face. Around him, the Gulf of Mexico stretched endlessly into darkness, oil derricks blinking like distant stars. He'd been welding underwater pipeline joints for 16 hours straight, his body aching from the pressure changes. But now every muscle went rigid. The number wasn't in his contacts. The timestamp showed it was taken yesterday evening, while he was 300 miles offshore, earning overtime to pay for Ellie's piano lessons and his wife's latest home renovation project. "Kettler, you good?" his dive partner Jake called from across the deck. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Mason forced his expression neutral, the way he'd learned to do after 13 years underwater, where panic ended you faster than equipment failure. "Yeah, just tired." But as he stared at the image, questions clawed at his mind. Who took this picture? Why send it to him? And most importantly, whose car was his daughter riding in? He screenshot the image and tucked the phone into his vest pocket, the weight of it suddenly feeling like lead. 2 more weeks on this rotation. 2 more weeks before he could get answers. The next morning, Mason called home during his scheduled break. Rowan's voice carried that familiar warmth that had made him fall in love with her 15 years ago. "Hey, honey, how's the rig treating you?" Same as always. "Ellie doing okay?" "She's perfect. Actually, she's been spending more time with Bryce lately. You remember Bryce, my boss? He's been so sweet taking her to the school fundraiser when I had to work late." "She absolutely adores him." Mason's grip tightened on the phone. "Bryce took her to the fundraiser? He's wonderful with kids. Actually, he's thinking of starting a little league team for the company families. Ellie's already practicing her swing." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, but Mason barely heard it. Every casual mention of Bryce felt like a knife twist. When he finally hung up, he stared at the photograph again, memorizing every detail of the car's interior. That evening, he worked late, staying busy to avoid thinking. But at midnight, alone in his bunk, Mason opened his laptop and started typing. If something was wrong at home, he needed to know. And if nothing was wrong, he needed to know that too. He started with social media, scrolling through Rowan's recent posts. There, a photo from the school fundraiser. Ellie, grinning beside a tall man with graying temples and an expensive watch. The caption read, "So grateful for friends who step up when work calls." Mason zoomed in on the background. Same car interior, same elephant. His hands shook as he closed the laptop. In the darkness of his bunk, surrounded by the constant hum of generators and the distant sound of waves, Mason Kettler began to plan. 2 days later, during his next shore call, Mason dialed his sister Jana's number. She worked as a paralegal at Broussard and Associates in Lafayette, specializing in family law documentation. "Mason, it's early. Everything okay? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Go ahead. If someone wanted to hide assets before a divorce, how would they do it?" Jana was quiet for a long moment. "Jesus, Mason. Is this about Rowan?" "Maybe. I don't know yet, but I need to understand how this works." "Okay. Well, the first thing they do is create a paper trail showing the assets were always separate. Maybe refinance properties, claiming it's for tax purposes or investment opportunities. Transfer money to accounts the other spouse doesn't know about. Make it look legitimate. What about prenups? You have one, right? From what I remember, Mom made you both sign something before the wedding." Mason rubbed his temples. "Yeah, but it was simple. Just basic asset protection if we divorced within the first 5 years. That's not how yours works, Mason. I helped Mom's lawyer draft it, remember? There's a clause about infidelity after 10 years, but before 13 years of marriage. If proven, the betrayed spouse can claim primary ownership of shared assets." Mason felt a chill run through him. They'd been married 11 years. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Mason, what's going on? I'll call you back." He hung up and immediately called his dive supervisor. "I need to take emergency leave." "Family situation? Kettler, you've got 2 weeks left on rotation. You can't just—" "My daughter might be in danger." That was enough. By evening, Mason was on a helicopter heading back to Louisiana, his mind racing with possibilities he didn't want to consider. He arrived home at 10 p.m., using his key quietly. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. Rowan was at the table with her laptop, wearing the silk robe he'd bought her for Christmas. "Mason?" She looked genuinely surprised. "What are you doing here? I thought you weren't due back until next week." "Had to cut the rotation short. Equipment problems." He kissed her forehead, studying her face for any sign of guilt. "Where's Ellie?" "Asleep. She'll be so excited to see you in the morning." Mason nodded, settling into the chair across from her. "What are you working on so late?" "Just reviewing some contracts. You know how it is." She closed the laptop. "Are you hungry? I can make you something." "I'm fine. Actually, I'm exhausted. I think I'll just shower and go to bed." "Of course. I'll be up in a few minutes." In the bathroom, Mason stood under the hot water and tried to think clearly. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe the photograph was innocent. Maybe Bryce was just a family friend helping out. But as he dried off, he heard Rowan's voice through the thin walls, talking quietly on the phone. "No, he came home early. Some kind of equipment problem. I know. We'll have to be more careful." "Yes, I'll handle it." Mason's hands clenched into fists. He'd heard enough. The next morning, after Rowan left for work and Ellie was at school, Mason drove to his cousin Kellen's apartment. Kellen worked as a field manager for the same logistics company where Rowan was HR director, but he'd always been the black sheep of the family, 2 DUIs, gambling debts, and a tendency to find trouble. "Mason? What the heck are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you about Rowan." Kellen's face went pale. "I don't know what you mean." "Cut the crap, Kellen. You know something." "I can see it in your face." Kellen led him inside, nervously running his hands through his hair. "Look, man, I didn't want to get involved. But Rowan, she's been playing games at work. With Bryce." "What kind of games?" "The kind that could get them both fired. She's been approving his expense reports, giving him insider information about company bids, and he's been returning favors." Mason's jaw tightened. "Oh, what kind of favors?" "Promotions, bonuses, access to company resources." Kellen paused. "And she's been moving money around. Lots of money." "How do you know this?" "Because I've been helping her." "God help me, Mason. She said it was for tax purposes. She said you knew about it." Mason stood up, pacing the small living room. "I didn't know about any of this. I figured that out about a month ago. That's when I started keeping records." Kellen walked to his bedroom and returned with a USB drive. "I've been documenting everything. Emails, financial transfers, meeting schedules. I kept telling myself I was protecting the family, but really I was just scared of what would happen if I spoke up." Mason took the USB drive, feeling its weight. "Why are you giving me this now?" "Because I saw her last week at Bryce's house with Ellie. And I realized she's not just cheating on you financially, Mason. She's replacing you." That evening, Mason sat in his truck outside Ellie's school, watching her play on the playground. She was laughing with her friends, completely unaware of the storm building around her life. When she saw him, her face lit up. "Daddy, you're home early!" "Hey, sweetheart." He lifted her into a hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "How was school?" "Good. Mr. Bryce said he's going to teach me how to hit a baseball this weekend. He's really nice, Daddy. He brings me ice cream and tells funny stories." Mason's heart ached. "That's great, baby. But I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Has Mr. Bryce been spending a lot of time at our house?" Ellie nodded enthusiastically. "Oh, yes. He comes over when you're at work. He and Mommy have meetings in the office, and then we watch movies together. Sometimes he sleeps over in the guest room when it gets really late." "The guest room?" "Well, sometimes. But last week I woke up and he was in your bed with Mommy. I asked her why, and she said he was just helping her with a bad dream." Mason's vision blurred with rage, but he kept his voice steady. "That's okay, sweetheart. People help each other with bad dreams sometimes." "I know. But Daddy, I don't think Mr. Bryce is very good at helping with bad dreams because Mommy still seems worried all the time." That night, Mason called Jana again. "I need your help. Professional help." "Okay. What do you need?" "I need to protect Ellie, and I need to protect myself. But I want to do this right, legal, clean. Tell me everything." Mason spent the next hour walking Jana through everything he'd discovered. The photographs, Kellen's confession, Ellie's innocent revelations, the financial irregularities. Mason, this is bigger than just adultery. If she's been moving marital assets without your knowledge, that's fraud. And if she's been using her position at work to benefit her lover, that's a whole other level of legal trouble. What do I do? First, you document everything, every conversation, every financial transaction, every time she lies to you. Second, you quietly secure your own assets. Third, you get Ellie into counseling with someone who specializes in family trauma. Family trauma? Mason, your daughter is 9 years old and she's been watching her mother's affair unfold in real time. She's confused and scared, even if she doesn't understand why. We need professional documentation of her emotional state. And then? Then we destroy them. Legally, completely. And we make sure Ellie never has to live in this kind of chaos again. The next morning, Mason called his supervisor and requested extended leave. Family medical emergency, he explained. I need at least a month, maybe more. Kettler, you've been with us for 8 years. You've never asked for anything. Take all the time you need. With his leave approved, Mason began his campaign. First, he visited Dr. Sarah Chen, a child psychologist who specialized in custody cases. I need you to evaluate my daughter, he explained. Her mother and I are having marital problems, and I'm concerned about the impact on Ellie. Dr. Chen scheduled an appointment for the following week. I'll need to interview both parents, she said. And I'll need to document my findings for potential legal proceedings. Next, Mason opened a new bank account at a different institution, transferring funds from their joint savings. He documented each transfer, creating a paper trail that showed he was protecting marital assets, not hiding them. Then he visited a private investigator recommended by Jana. I need surveillance, he said. My wife and her boss. I need photographs, video if possible, and I need it to be admissible in court. How long has this been going on? At least 6 months, maybe longer, but I need proof. Give me 2 weeks. I'll get you everything you need. Finally, Mason installed a dash cam in his truck and purchased a voice recorder. He would document every conversation, every interaction, every lie. On Wednesday evening, Rowan came home late from work, claiming she'd been in meetings with the regional manager. Mason was waiting in the kitchen, having already confirmed through Kellen that there were no meetings scheduled that day. How was your day? He asked casually. Exhausting. Bryce and I had to review the quarterly reports, and then there was this whole issue with the new shipping contracts. She opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of wine. Sometimes I wonder if this job is worth all the stress. Mason activated the voice recorder in his pocket. Maybe you should look for something else. Maybe I will. Actually, Bryce mentioned there might be opportunities with other companies. He has connections. That's convenient. Rowan looked at him sharply. What do you mean by that? Nothing. Just that it's nice to have someone looking out for you. She relaxed slightly. He's been a good friend, especially with you being gone so much. Speaking of which, I might need to take a land-based position. I'm getting tired of the offshore rotations. Really? She seemed surprised. But the money is so good. Money isn't everything, Rowan. I want to be home more, with you and Ellie. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Fear? Panic? But then she smiled. That would be wonderful. We could spend more time together as a family. That night, Mason lay awake listening to Rowan's breathing, wondering how long she'd been lying to him. How many nights had she lain in this same bed, planning her betrayal? The next morning, while Rowan was at work, Mason received a call from Kellen. Mason, we need to talk. Something's happening at work. They met at a coffee shop downtown. Kellen looked nervous, constantly checking over his shoulder. They're accelerating the timeline, Kellen said. Rowan told Bryce you might be coming back to land-based work, and they're panicking. What timeline? The asset transfer. They've been moving money through a shell company Bryce set up. The plan was to complete the transfers over the next 6 months, make it look like legitimate business investments. But now they want to do it all at once. A chill ran through Mason. How much money? Everything, Mason. The house, the savings, your retirement account. They're planning to claim it was always Bryce's money, that you were just a beneficiary. That's impossible. I can prove where every dollar came from. Not if the paperwork says otherwise. Rowan has been forging documents for months. She has access to everything through her HR position. Mason gripped his coffee cup so tightly his knuckles went white. When? Tomorrow. They're meeting with a lawyer at 2 p.m. to finalize the paperwork. I need copies of everything, every document, every email, every financial record. Kellen pulled out another USB drive. I've been backing up everything to my personal drives. But Mason, if they find out I've been helping you, they won't find out. Because by tomorrow afternoon, this whole thing is going to be over. That evening, Mason sat in his truck outside Bryce's house, watching through the private investigator's telephoto lens. At 7:30, Rowan's car pulled into the driveway. She got out carrying an overnight bag and a bottle of champagne. The PI snapped photos as she walked to the front door, as Bryce answered wearing only a bathrobe as they embraced in the doorway. "That's it," the PI said. "We've got everything we need." "Good, because tomorrow we're going to use it." The next morning, Mason called Jana. "It's time." "Are you sure? Once we start this, there's no going back." "I'm sure. They're trying to steal everything today. If we don't act now, Ellie and I will have nothing left." "Okay. I'll call Judge Morrison's office. We can get an emergency hearing this afternoon." "What about Rowan? She's supposed to be at that lawyer meeting at 2. She'll be there. But she's going to get a very unpleasant surprise." At 1:45 p.m., Mason sat in the courthouse hallway wearing his best suit and carrying a briefcase full of evidence. Jana sat beside him, reviewing their notes one final time. "Remember," she said, "let me do the talking. You just answer the questions directly and honestly." "What if she tries to deny everything?" "She can't. We have too much evidence. Photos, financial records, witness testimony, expert analysis. She's going to have to either admit everything or commit perjury." At 2 p.m., the bailiff called their case. Mason walked into the courtroom and saw Rowan sitting at the defendant's table with a lawyer he didn't recognize. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. When she saw him, her eyes widened in shock. "Mason? What are you doing here?" Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "This is an emergency hearing in the matter of Kettler versus Kettler. I understand we're dealing with allegations of adultery, fraud, and child endangerment." Jana stood. "Your Honor, we have extensive documentation of the defendant's systematic betrayal of her marriage vows and her attempts to defraud my client of his marital assets." For the next hour, Jana methodically presented their evidence. The photographs from the private investigator, the financial records from Kellen's files, the voice recordings of Rowan's lies, Dr. Chen's preliminary report on Ellie's emotional state. When it was over, Rowan's lawyer looked defeated. "Your Honor, my client would like to request a recess to review this evidence." "Request denied. This is an emergency hearing, Counselor. Your client has been systematically looting marital assets while conducting an affair. Time is of the essence." Judge Morrison looked directly at Rowan. "Mrs. Kettler, have you been conducting an extramarital affair with your supervisor, Bryce Dray?" Rowan's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." "And have you been transferring marital assets to accounts controlled by Mr. Dray?" "Your Honor, I can explain. Yes or no, Mrs. Kettler?" "Yes." Judge Morrison made notes on his legal pad. "Based on the evidence presented in the defendant's admissions, I'm issuing the following orders. First, all marital assets are to be frozen immediately. Second, Mrs. Kettler is to have no contact with the marital accounts or property. Third, temporary custody of the minor child is awarded to Mr. Kettler pending a full psychological evaluation." Rowan gasped. "Your Honor, you can't take my daughter away from me." "I'm not taking her away, Mrs. Kettler. I'm protecting her from a chaotic and potentially harmful situation. You'll have supervised visitation rights pending the completion of family counseling." As they left the courthouse, Rowan caught up with Mason in the parking lot. "Mason, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but I love you. I love Ellie." Mason stopped walking and turned to face her. "You love me? You've been planning to destroy me for months. You've been using our daughter as a pawn in your games." "That's not true. I never wanted to hurt Ellie." "Then why did you introduce her to your lover? Why did you let her get attached to him while you were planning to leave me?" Rowan's composure cracked. "Because I was scared." "I was scared you'd find out and take her away from me. So you decided to take everything away from me first? It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "Bryce said we could do it quietly, that you'd never have to know about the money." Mason shook his head. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about the money, Rowan. This is about trust." This is about the fact that you looked me in the eye every day for months and lied to me. I can change. I can make this right. No, you can't, because I'll never be able to trust you again. And Ellie deserves better than growing up in a house full of lies. The next day, Mason drove to Bryce's office building. He found Bryce in the parking garage, loading boxes into his car. Going somewhere? Mason asked. Bryce turned, his face flushed with anger. Mason, I heard about yesterday. Pretty underhanded, don't you think? Underhanded? You've been screwing my wife and stealing my money for months. And you think I'm the underhanded one? Rowan came to me, Mason. She was unhappy. She felt neglected. So you decided to help yourself to my life. I gave her what she needed. Attention, affection, security. Mason stepped closer. You gave her what she needed? What about what my daughter needed? What about stability and honesty? Don't pretend this is about Ellie. This is about your ego. My ego? Mason's voice rose. You manipulated a 9-year-old child. You made her think you were her friend while you were destroying her family. I care about Ellie. I was good to her. You were grooming her, getting her used to you so she wouldn't resist when you replaced me. Bryce's face darkened. That's not true, isn't it? Then why did you let her call you uncle? Why did you sleep in her father's bed while she was in the house? I love Rowan. I wanted to marry her. You wanted to marry her money. You wanted to marry her position. You wanted to marry the life I built. You were never around. You were always offshore, always working. She was lonely. I was working to provide for my family. You were working to steal my family. Bryce threw a box into his car and slammed the trunk. Well, congratulations. You won. I hope you're happy. Happy. You think I'm happy. My marriage is over. My daughter's life is turned upside down. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust anyone again. Then why did you do it? Why not just let it go? Mason stared at him for a long moment. Because some things are worth fighting for. And some things are worth protecting, even if it costs you everything else. That evening, Mason picked up Ellie from school and took her to their favorite diner. She was quiet, picking at her chicken tenders. Daddy, why isn't Mommy living with us anymore? Mason chose his words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, sweetheart. Big mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes mean they need to spend some time apart. Did I do something wrong? No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't your fault at all. But Mr. Bryce said, what did Mr. Bryce say? He said that sometimes families change and that's okay. He said maybe he could be like a new daddy for me. Mason's jaw clenched, but he kept his voice gentle. Ellie, you already have a daddy. You have me. And no one is ever going to replace me. Promise? I promise. You're my daughter, and I love you more than anything in the world. That's never going to change. 2 weeks later, Mason received a call from Kellen. Mason, you need to know something. Rowan and Bryce have been arrested. What? The FBI raided the logistics company yesterday. Turns out they weren't just stealing from you. They were stealing from the company, too. Falsifying contracts, skimming money from client accounts, the whole 9 yards? Mason sat down heavily. How long have they been doing this? At least 2 years, maybe longer. The company's been under investigation for months. And you knew about this? I suspected. But I thought it was just expense account padding, maybe some minor fraud. I didn't realize how deep it went. Jesus, Kellen. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared. And because I thought maybe I could fix it from the inside. I thought maybe I could make Rowan see sense. What happens now? They're both looking at federal charges. Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. They could go to prison for 20 years. Mason hung up the phone and stared at the wall. All this time, he'd thought he was fighting for his marriage, his family, his assets. But really, he'd been fighting for his life. The trial took place 6 months later. Mason testified about the financial irregularities, the lies, the systematic betrayal. Ellie was spared from testifying, but Dr. Chen's report documented the psychological damage that had been done. In the end, Rowan was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Bryce got 12 years. The company was forced to pay restitution to all the clients they'd defrauded, and Mason recovered most of his stolen assets. But the money wasn't what mattered anymore. One evening, as Mason was tucking Ellie into bed, she asked him a question that broke his heart. Daddy, do you think Mommy ever really loved us? Mason sat on the edge of her bed, searching for the right words. I think Mommy loved us the best way she knew how. But sometimes people get confused about what love really means. What does it mean? It means putting the people you love first. It means being honest, even when it's hard. It means protecting the people who depend on you. Like you protect me? Like I protect you. Ellie smiled and closed her eyes. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. Sweet dreams. As Mason turned off the light and walked downstairs, he thought about the man he'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, willing to believe the best about people, even when the evidence suggested otherwise. That man was gone. In his place was someone harder, more cautious, more aware of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of ordinary lives. But he was also someone who had fought for what mattered and won. Someone who had protected his daughter from a world that wanted to use her as a pawn. Someone who had learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is the willingness to destroy everything to save what's most important. 6 months later, Mason was offered a promotion to offshore operations manager. It would mean better pay, better hours, and most importantly, it would mean being home every night with Ellie. Daddy, are you going to take the new job? Ellie asked over breakfast. I think I am. It means I won't have to go away on the rigs anymore. Good. I like having you home. I like being home. Daddy, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you think you'll ever get married again? Mason paused, considering the question. Maybe someday. But only if I find someone who loves you as much as I do, and only if I can trust them completely. How will you know if you can trust them? I'll know because they'll prove it every day, in little ways and big ways. They'll show me that they're the kind of person who keeps their promises. Like you keep your promises to me? Like I keep my promises to you. That afternoon, Mason was working in the garage when his phone rang. It was Kellen. Mason, I wanted to let you know, I got a new job with a company in Houston. Clean company, no corruption, no drama. That's great, Kellen. I'm happy for you. I also wanted to apologize, again, for not telling you sooner. For not stopping it when I had the chance. Kellen, you did the right thing in the end. That's what matters. I keep thinking about what would have happened if I hadn't given you those files. If I'd kept quiet and let them go through with their plan. But you didn't. You chose to do the right thing, even though it was hard. I guess. But Mason, I learned something from all this. I learned that staying silent when you know something is wrong, that's not loyalty, that's cowardice. Yeah, I learned that too. Take care of yourself. And give Ellie a hug from me. I will. As Mason hung up the phone, he thought about the concept of loyalty. For years, he'd believed that loyalty meant trusting people, giving them the benefit of the doubt, assuming the best about their motives. Now he understood that real loyalty, the kind that mattered, was about protecting the people who couldn't protect themselves. It was about standing up for what was right, even when it cost you everything. That evening, Mason and Ellie were watching a movie when she suddenly looked up at him. Daddy, I'm proud of you. Why's that, sweetheart? Because you fought for me, even when it was scary. Mason pulled her closer. I'll always fight for you, Ellie. That's what daddies do. I know. And someday when I'm bigger, I'll fight for people too, the way you fought for me. I hope you never have to fight the way I did. I hope the world is kinder to you. But if I do have to fight, I'll remember what you taught me. What did I teach you? That sometimes the right thing is the hard thing. And that family is worth fighting for. Mason smiled and kissed the top of her head. Yeah, sweetheart. Family is worth fighting for. 1 year later, Mason was promoted again, this time to Regional Operations Director. The job came with a substantial raise and a company car, but more importantly, it came with respect. His colleagues knew what he'd been through, and they admired the way he'd handled it. At the company Christmas party, Mason was standing by the punch bowl when his boss approached him. Mason, I wanted to thank you again for your testimony in the federal case. Your courage helped us clean house and rebuild our reputation. I just did what anyone would have done. No, you didn't. Most people would have taken the easy way out. They would have looked the other way or tried to work out some kind of compromise. You chose the hard path. The hard path? The path of integrity? The path that says some things are worth more than money or comfort or convenience. Mason nodded. My daughter needed to see that. She needed to know that her father was the kind of man who would fight for what's right. And now she does. Yeah, now she does. As Mason drove home that night, he thought about the man he'd become: stronger, wiser, more careful about trust, but also more committed to the people who earned it. He thought about Rowan sitting in federal prison, probably wondering how her life had gone so wrong. He felt no satisfaction in her punishment, but he felt no regret either. She had made her choices, and those choices had consequences. He thought about Bryce, who had lost everything: his career, his freedom, his reputation. The man who had tried to steal Mason's life had ended up destroying his own. But mostly, he thought about Ellie, asleep in the passenger seat, her homework folder clutched in her lap. She was doing well in school, making new friends, learning to trust again. She was resilient in the way that children are, able to adapt and grow even after trauma. When they arrived home, Mason carried Ellie inside and tucked her into bed. As he turned off the light, she stirred. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "I had a dream about Mommy." Mason's heart clenched. "What kind of dream?" "She was sorry. She said she was sorry for hurting us." "How did that make you feel?" "Sad, but also, I don't know. Free? Free how? Like maybe I don't have to be angry anymore? Like maybe I can just love the good parts and let go of the bad parts?" Mason smiled in the darkness. "That's very wise, Ellie. Very grown up. I learned it from you." "You're not angry anymore, are you?" Mason considered the question. Was he angry? He'd been furious for months, consumed with rage at the betrayal, the lies, the systematic destruction of everything he'd built. But somewhere along the way, the anger had transformed into something else. Determination, clarity, purpose. "No, sweetheart, I'm not angry anymore." "Good, anger makes people do stupid things." "Yes, it does. But sometimes anger can also make people do necessary things. Like fight for their family. Like fight for their family." 2 years later, Mason was offered a job with a competitor in Texas. The salary was significantly higher, but it would mean leaving Louisiana, leaving the life he'd rebuilt. "What do you think?" he asked Ellie over dinner. "Would you want to move to Texas? Would it be a new start, like completely new?" "Yeah. New house, new school, new everything." Ellie considered this. "Would I still be able to visit Mommy?" Mason nodded. "If you want to. She's eligible for supervised visits now." "I don't know if I want to. Is that okay?" "That's completely okay. You don't owe anyone a relationship, Ellie. Not even family. But she's my mom." "She's your biological mother, but being a parent is more than just biology. It's about showing up every day. It's about putting your child's needs first. It's about being someone your child can count on. You've always done that." "I try to. And I always will." Ellie smiled. "Then yes, let's go to Texas. Let's have our new start." The move happened in August, just before Ellie started 7th grade. Mason found them a house in a good school district, with a big backyard and a tire swing. Ellie picked out paint colors for her room and helped Mason plan a garden. On their first weekend in the new house, they were unpacking boxes when Ellie found a photo album from their old life. She sat on the floor, flipping through pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. "We looked happy," she said quietly. Mason sat down beside her. "We were happy. Some of it was real, Ellie. The good memories, the love we shared as a family, that was all real." "Even though Mommy was lying?" "Even though she was lying. People are complicated. They can love you and hurt you at the same time. They can do terrible things while believing they're doing the right thing." "Do you think she believed she was doing the right thing?" Mason thought about it. "I think she convinced herself she was. I think she told herself stories about how we'd all be happier in the end. But we weren't happier. No, we weren't, because happiness built on lies isn't real happiness. It's just an illusion." Ellie closed the photo album. "I want to put this away now, not because I'm angry, but because I want to focus on what's real." "What's real?" "You and me, our new house, my new school. The life we're building together." Mason hugged her tightly. "Yeah, sweetheart, that's what's real." 3 months later, Mason received a letter forwarded from their old address. It was from Rowan, written in the careful handwriting he remembered from grocery lists and birthday cards. "Dear Mason, I know I have no right to contact you, and I understand if you don't read this. But I needed to try to explain, not to excuse what I did, but to help you understand. I was scared. I was scared of getting older, of being forgotten, of being ordinary. Bryce made me feel special, important, like I was the center of someone's world. I know that's selfish, but it's the truth. I never meant for Ellie to get hurt. I thought I could manage everything, keep everyone happy, make it work somehow. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that every day, I think about the family I destroyed. Every day I regret the choices I made. Please tell Ellie that I love her, even though I didn't show it in the right way. And please tell her that none of this was her fault. I hope you found peace. I hope you found happiness. Hey, you deserve both. Rowan Mason read the letter twice, then folded it and put it in his desk drawer. He would show it to Ellie when she was older, when she was ready to process it. For now, he would carry this burden alone. That evening, as he was reading in the living room, Ellie came downstairs in her pajamas. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever miss being married, like having a partner?" Mason marked his place in his book. "Sometimes, but not the marriage I had. I miss the idea of having someone to share life with, someone who chooses you every day. Do you think you'll find that someday?" "Maybe. If I do, it'll be with someone who understands that trust isn't just given, it's earned. And it's earned every single day. Someone who would never hurt me the way Mommy did. Someone who would protect you the way I do. Someone who sees you as a blessing, not an obstacle." Ellie curled up on the couch next to him. "I hope you find that person. You deserve to be happy." "I am happy, Ellie. Maybe not in the way I thought I'd be, but I'm happy. I have you, I have work I'm good at, I have a life I can be proud of. Even after everything that happened. Especially after everything that happened. Because now I know what really matters. I know the difference between what's real and what's fake. I know who I can count on and who I can't. And you can count on me." Mason smiled. "Yeah, sweetheart. I can count on you." 4 years later, Ellie was a junior in high school, making straight A's and preparing for college applications. She had grown into a confident, thoughtful young woman who spoke her mind and stood up for herself. One evening, she came home from school with news. "Daddy, my guidance counselor wants to nominate me for a scholarship program. It's for students who have overcome significant family challenges." Mason looked up from his laptop. "That's wonderful. Are you interested?" "I think so. But I have to write an essay about my experiences, about what I learned from everything that happened. How do you feel about that?" "Nervous, but also kind of excited. Like maybe our story can help other people. What would you write about?" Ellie sat down at the kitchen table, her expression thoughtful. "I'd write about resilience, about how people can survive betrayal and come out stronger. About how love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day. Those are good lessons. I learned them from you, from watching you choose to fight for us instead of giving up, from watching you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness. I was bitter for a while, but you didn't stay bitter. That's what matters." Mason closed his laptop and joined her at the table. "Ellie, I want you to know something. Everything I went through, everything we went through, it was worth it to get to this moment, to see you become the person you are." "Really?" "Really, you're strong and kind and honest. You know your own worth. You won't let anyone treat you the way your mother treated our family." "No, I won't. Because you taught me what real love looks like. What does it look like? It looks like showing up. It looks like keeping promises. It looks like choosing your family every single day, even when it's hard." That night, Mason sat on his back porch looking up at the stars and thinking about the journey that had brought him here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had also been the catalyst for the most important fight of his life. He thought about the man he'd been, trusting to a fault, willing to overlook red flags, more concerned with keeping peace than protecting what mattered. And he thought about the man he'd become, careful but not cynical, strong but not hardened, protective but not paranoid. The next morning, Mason received a call from his lawyer. "Mason, I have some news. Rowan is being released next month. She served her time and she's being transferred to a halfway house in Baton Rouge." Mason was quiet for a moment. "Does she want to see Ellie?" "She's requesting supervised visits." "But it's entirely up to you and Ellie." I'll talk to Ellie about it, but the decision is hers. That evening, Mason sat Ellie down and explained the situation. She listened quietly, her expression unreadable. "What do you think I should do?" she asked finally. "I think you should do whatever feels right to you. There's no wrong choice here. If I see her, I want you there. Not just because of the supervision requirement, but because I need you there. Of course. And I want to set boundaries. I want her to know that she's not my mom in any way that matters. You're my parent. You're the one who raised me." Okay. And if she tries to manipulate me or make excuses or blame other people, I want to be able to leave. Absolutely. Ellie was quiet for a long moment. "I think I want to see her. Not because I miss her or forgive her, but because I want her to see who I became without her. I want her to see what she gave up." 2 weeks later, Mason and Ellie sat in a sterile visitation room at the halfway house, waiting for Rowan to appear. When she walked in, Mason barely recognized her. She was thinner, grayer, older. Prison had aged her beyond her years. She sat down across from them, her hands folded in her lap. "Ellie, you look beautiful." "So grown up." Ellie's voice was steady, controlled. "Hello, Rowan." "Rowan?" Pain flickered across the older woman's face. "I'm still your mother, Ellie." "No, you're not. You're the woman who gave birth to me." "But my father raised me." Mason watched the exchange, ready to intervene if necessary, but proud of Ellie's composure. Rowan's eyes filled with tears. "I know I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I love you. I've always loved you." "Love isn't just a feeling," Ellie said. "It's action. It's sacrifice. It's putting someone else's needs before your own. You never did any of those things. I was confused. I was selfish. But I've changed." "Prison changed me." "Good. I'm glad you've changed. But it doesn't change what you did." Rowan looked at Mason. "I suppose you've turned her against me." Mason spoke for the first time. "I've never said a negative word about you to Ellie. I didn't have to. Your actions spoke for themselves. I was going to leave him for you," Rowan said to Ellie. "I was going to take you with me." "Take me where? To live with your boyfriend in a house bought with stolen money? To live with people who lie and cheat and steal? I thought we could be happy." "Happy?" Ellie's composure cracked slightly. "You thought I'd be happy watching you destroy everything good in my life? You thought I'd be happy living with people I couldn't trust? I thought you liked Bryce. I was 9 years old. I didn't know he was destroying my family. I thought he was being nice." Mason reached over and squeezed Ellie's hand. "Do you want to leave?" Ellie took a deep breath, regaining her composure. "No, I want to finish this." She looked directly at Rowan. "I came here to tell you something. I came to tell you that despite everything you did, I turned out okay. I'm smart and strong and honest. I know my worth, and I won't let anyone treat me the way you treated us." "Ellie, I'm not finished. I also came to tell you that you don't get to be part of my success. You don't get to take credit for who I became." "I became this person because of my father, because he fought for me when you tried to throw me away." Rowan was crying now, but Ellie continued. "And I came to tell you that I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I forgive you for being selfish. I forgive you for being weak. I forgive you for choosing someone else over your own family. Does that mean we can have a relationship?" "No, it means I'm free from anger. It means I'm free from the burden of hating you. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation." Mason had never been prouder of his daughter than he was in that moment. They left the halfway house together, walking in silence to the car. Once they were inside, Ellie finally spoke. "I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I said everything I needed to say." "How do you feel?" "Lighter, like I was carrying something heavy and I finally got to put it down." "Any regrets?" "No. I said what I needed to say, and I meant every word." As they drove home, Mason thought about the concept of closure. For years, he'd wondered if he'd done the right thing by fighting so hard, by destroying Rowan's life so completely. Now he knew. He'd saved his daughter from a lifetime of confusion and manipulation. He'd taught her that some things were worth fighting for, and some people were worth protecting. 6 months later, Ellie graduated as valedictorian of her high school class. In her speech, she talked about resilience, about the importance of strong foundations, about the difference between people who build you up and people who tear you down. After the ceremony, as they were taking pictures, Ellie pulled Mason aside. "Daddy, I have something to tell you." "What's that?" "I got into Stanford, full scholarship." Mason's face lit up. "Ellie, that's incredible. I know it's far away, and I know it means leaving you alone." "Hey," Mason took her hands. "You're not leaving me. You're growing up. You're becoming the person you're meant to be, and I couldn't be prouder." "Are you sure? Because I could go to LSU instead. Stay closer to home." "Ellie, you are going to Stanford. You're going to study whatever you want to study, and you're going to change the world. What if I fail?" "You won't fail, but even if you did, you get back up and try again. Because that's who you are." That night, they celebrated at Ellie's favorite restaurant. As they were waiting for dessert, she asked him a question. "Daddy, do you think things would have been different if you just ignored what Mommy was doing? If you just looked the other way?" Mason considered the question. "Maybe. Maybe we'd still be living in that house, pretending to be a happy family. Maybe you'd have grown up thinking that love meant accepting betrayal, that family meant living with lies. And I'd probably still be naive about people. Probably. You'd probably be more trusting, more willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. Do you think that would have been better? No. I think trust should be earned. I think love should be real. I think family should be a safe place, not a battlefield. Even if it means going through all that pain? Even then. Because the pain taught us who we really are. It taught us what we're capable of. It taught us that we can survive anything as long as we have each other." Ellie smiled. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart." 3 months later, Mason helped Ellie move into her Stanford dorm room. As they finished unpacking, she hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For fighting for me. For never giving up. For showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for being worth fighting for." As Mason drove away from campus, he felt a mixture of pride and loneliness. His little girl was grown up, ready to take on the world. But he also felt something else: peace. For the first time in years, Mason Kettler was alone with his thoughts. No crisis to manage, no battles to fight, no one to protect except himself. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Over the next few months, Mason settled into a new routine: work during the day, gym in the evening, dinner alone while reading or watching documentaries. He was content, but not entirely fulfilled. Then, one Saturday morning, while volunteering at a local food bank, he met Sarah. She was a social worker, recently divorced, with a teenage son. She was kind, but not naive, strong, but not hardened. When she laughed, it was genuine. When she spoke about her work, her passion was evident. After several weeks of working together, she asked him to coffee. "I should warn you," Mason said as they sat in the cafe. "I have trust issues." "I should warn you," Sarah replied. "So do I. My ex-wife nearly destroyed my life. My ex-husband was an alcoholic who gambled away our savings. I have a daughter in college who is the most important person in my world. I have a son who's been through heck and comes first in my life." Mason smiled. "So we're both damaged goods?" "Maybe. Or maybe we're both people who know what real problems look like and we're not going to waste time on fake drama." "Maybe." They dated slowly, carefully. Mason introduced her to Ellie via video chat, and Ellie approved. "She seems real," Ellie said afterward. "Like, genuinely real." Sarah's son took longer to warm up to Mason, but eventually they bonded over their shared love of fishing. A year later, Mason proposed to Sarah on the same beach where he'd received that first mysterious photograph 4 years earlier. But this time, instead of betrayal and lies, he was surrounded by truth and possibility. "Are you sure?" Sarah asked after she said yes. "Are you sure you're ready to trust someone again?" "I'm sure I'm ready to trust you." "Because you've shown me who you are, every single day in ways big and small." They were married the following spring, with Ellie as maid of honor and Sarah's son as best man. It was a small ceremony, attended only by people who mattered. During the reception, Ellie pulled Mason aside. "I'm proud of you," she said. "For what?" "For not letting what happened with Mom make you bitter. for staying open to love. I had a good teacher. You taught me that healing is possible. We taught each other. As Mason danced with his new wife, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had also been the catalyst for becoming the man he was meant to be. He thought about Rowan, somewhere in Louisiana, living with the consequences of her choices. He felt no satisfaction in her downfall, but no regret either. He thought about Bryce, whose name occasionally appeared in the news as he faced additional charges related to their fraud scheme. The man who had tried to steal Mason's life had ended up losing his own. But mostly, he thought about the future, about building something real with someone who understood the value of trust, about watching Ellie continue to grow and succeed, about the possibility of peace after years of war. 5 years later, Mason and Sarah were sitting on their back porch watching the sunset when his phone rang. It was Ellie, calling from her graduate program at Harvard Law School. "Dad, I have news. I got the internship with the Justice Department. I'm going to be working on financial crimes prosecution." Mason smiled. "Following in your old man's footsteps?" "In a way. I want to help other people who've been betrayed the way we were. I want to make sure the bad guys face consequences." "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Your mother would be proud too if she were capable of it." "I know, but Dad, I need to tell you something." "Rowan contacted me last week." Mason's grip tightened on the phone. "What did she want?" "To apologize, to try to explain, to ask for another chance. And I told her the same thing I told her 7 years ago. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I wished her well, but I told her I didn't want any contact." "How did she take it?" "She cried. She begged. She tried to guilt me by saying she was alone and sick and regretful. And I hung up. Because I learned from the best that you don't reward manipulation with attention." After they hung up, Sarah looked at Mason with concern. "Are you okay? You look tense." "I'm fine. Just thinking about how different things could have been." "Different how?" "If I hadn't found out about the affair. If I hadn't fought back. If I just accepted it and tried to keep the peace." "Do you regret fighting?" Mason thought about it. "No. Never. Because fighting saved Ellie. It saved me. It led me to you." "Even though it was painful?" "Especially because it was painful. The pain taught us who we really were. It taught us what we were capable of surviving." Sarah took his hand. "I love who you became because of that pain. I love who I became too. But more than that, I love who Ellie became. She's strong and honest and fearless. She knows her worth. She won't settle for less than she deserves. She learned that from you. We learned it together." That night, as Mason lay in bed next to his wife, he thought about the concept of justice. For years, he'd believed that justice meant punishment, that making someone pay for their crimes was the only way to find peace. Now he understood that real justice was simpler and more profound. Real justice was the life he'd built after the betrayal. Real justice was Ellie's success and happiness. Real justice was the love he'd found with Sarah. Real justice was the fact that he'd survived and thrived, while those who had tried to destroy him had destroyed themselves. 2 months later, Mason received a letter from Kellen, who was now married with a young daughter and working as a compliance officer for an oil company in Houston. "Mason, I wanted you to know that Rowan passed away last week. Heart attack. She was alone. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I thought you should know. Not because I think you should feel guilty, but because I think you should know that the chapter is finally closed. Ellie probably told you that Rowan tried to contact her recently. What she might not have told you is that Rowan also contacted me. She wanted me to convince Ellie to give her another chance. I told her the same thing you would have told her, that Ellie doesn't owe her anything. That forgiveness was a gift Ellie already gave her, and reconciliation was something she would never earn. I also told her something else. I told her that the life she destroyed wasn't just yours and Ellie's. It was her own. That she could have had everything. A loving husband, a wonderful daughter, a stable life. But she chose to throw it away for temporary thrills. I don't think she ever understood that. I think she always believed she was the victim somehow. Anyway, I thought you should know. I hope you and your family are well." Kellen Mason read the letter twice, then called Ellie. I heard, she said before he could speak. Kellen called me too. How do you feel about it? Sad, but not for the reasons you might think. I'm sad because she wasted her whole life. She could have been happy with us, but she chose something else. She chose to be selfish and dishonest, and it cost her everything. Any regrets? About not giving her another chance? No, she had plenty of chances. She had 11 years of marriage to choose differently. She had 9 years of being my mother to choose differently. She chose who she wanted to be, and we chose who we wanted to be. I love you, Ellie. I love you too, Dad. And Dad? Yeah? Thank you for teaching me that love isn't just about forgiveness, it's also about boundaries. It's about protecting yourself and the people you care about from people who would hurt you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us. A year later, at Ellie's law school graduation, Mason sat in the audience with Sarah and her son, watching his daughter receive her degree with highest honors. When her name was called, the pride he felt was almost overwhelming. Afterward, at the celebration dinner, Ellie stood up to give a toast. I want to thank everyone who's here tonight, but especially my dad. 15 years ago, he made the hardest decision of his life. He chose to fight for truth instead of accepting lies. He chose to protect me instead of protecting himself. He chose to be the kind of man I could be proud of. She looked directly at Mason. Because of that choice, I learned what real strength looks like. I learned what real love looks like. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone else's destructive behavior. Dad, you saved my life. Not just from the immediate danger of living in a house full of lies, but from a lifetime of accepting less than I deserve. You taught me that I'm worth fighting for. The room was quiet as Ellie raised her glass. So here's to my dad, who showed me that sometimes the greatest act of love is the willingness to lose everything to save what matters most. As the evening wound down, Mason and Ellie walked outside together, leaving the others to finish their conversations. Ellie, I need to tell you something. What's that? Everything I went through, everything we went through, it was worth it to see you become the person you are tonight. Really? Really? You're going to change the world, sweetheart. You're going to help people who are going through what we went through. You're going to be the voice for people who don't know how to fight for themselves. I learned from the best. Mason hugged his daughter tightly, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed their family had ultimately made them stronger. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Ellie. Now go change the world. As they walked back inside together, Mason felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. The war was over. They had won. Not because they had destroyed their enemies, but because they had refused to let their enemies destroy them. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered.